this is another conversation that we've had in the past about Brock Purdy. Well, in this case, another Raven connection here, Torrey Smith, and we have that clip, right, Brad?
Yeah.
We have the clip about Torrey Smith weighing in on his belief about Brock Purdy.
But you two, when you were talking about it, have just a sense of like, we know what we're looking at. What is anybody else looking at? When you're looking at this matchup, what do you think we'll get out of Brock Purdy in Super Bowl 58?
I mean, I think we're going to see the best version of him, right? And if he plays the way he's supposed to. Now, you can never predict it, but I think he's ready for the moment. I think he has the ability. Well, I think we all overdo it when we talk about the franchise quarterback situation. I think everyone overthinks it, right? And what I mean by that is Brock Purdy is a guy that you can win because he is your quarterback.
Right.
And if you go back and look at the guys who won the Super Bowl over the course of the last, go back 10, 12 years, most of them are Tom Brady, right? And even beyond that, there aren't very many guys yet. There's been 15 to 20 guys who've been paid record-breaking contracts. So I think for him, it goes to show that he's worth it, and you can win because he's your quarterback, and they would be foolish to not put everything they can behind this young cat as he grows and develops.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk about whether or not he's the quarterback of the future of them. Is it contingent on this game? And Torrey's saying he is.
He is.
And Torrey just talked to Jed, y'all, so that's all you need to know.
So there is something that I look at. There's still the question, even though Brock Purdy has gone to the NFC Championship game both years and to the Super Bowl, there's still the thought, is he the quarterback next season? Right? That's still a conversation. But what I did like to hear, though, is that Torrey Smith believes that Brock Purdy can win this game for him. He has to be Brock. I think that's the part. I think we can all agree. We don't have to say MVP or whatever you're going to think, and we've had this discussion over and over again. Brock Purdy is a very, very good quarterback in the NFL, and he deserves the credit for getting the team to the Super Bowl. Zach.
Yeah, I think Torrey put it perfectly. He's a guy that you can win games as the quarterback. He's going to do whatever it takes, and he's going to put the team in a position to go and win the football game. You know, obviously, people know my takes over this past year. I didn't think Purdy belonged in the MVP, top 3 MVP conversation. But if you think he's not the guy to build around in San Francisco, then you haven't been watching. I mean, it's pretty simple as that. Everything he's done since he's stepped foot there has proven that you can't go away from what he's doing, especially being Mr. Irrelevant. His contract, he's getting paid nothing still over the next 2 years. You would be stupid as a franchise to not continue with him.
Yeah, but that's where I feel like it's and that's why I tell people, at least with the Baltimore connection with Lamar Jackson, it's people are still having the thought, Lamar can't win the big game. Should he have been the long-term answer? Should you have signed him to the extension? You're sitting here and be like, what? Why? Why are we having this discussion? I feel like Brock Purdy's getting that all the time because he was Mr. Irrelevant. And I'm not saying Brock is the same as Lamar Jackson. That's not what I'm saying. But it's the same, I guess, hypocrisy when people complain that Lamar can't do it, and then they say that about Brock Purdy, about a quarterback that can't do it.
Yeah.
The guy's won. He can't help of who's on his team.
No.
He's doing the best with what he has, and what he has done has been one of the top quarterbacks since he's taken over as quarterback.
He's not losing games, right? And like Cam Newton called a bunch of flack about this, but I don't think that he was wrong. He talked about how Brock Purdy was a game manager, and he wasn't even using the term game manager as a negative connotation. It was just that he's a really good game manager. He's not a playmaker. He's not a game changer. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like Patrick Mahomes is a game changer. Lamar Jackson is a game changer. Josh Allen is a game changer. I wonder, Ryan, or anybody else, with this lower paid quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant, he's making what, like just over $1 million this year?
It's almost nothing. Yeah.
The payroll surrounding him is absolutely insane. And you got to wonder if the 49ers do win a Super Bowl this year, do other teams start to copy this? They start to pay and load up on both sides of the ball with some ridiculous talent, and then they get a quarterback that maybe doesn't have to do it all. And maybe they actually make it more of a complete team where you have a quarterback that you don't have to pay $250 million to or more.
Yeah.
And you can still find a way to win. Like, is that a formula that other teams can adopt?
What you're saying is that you just reset after the quarterback clock's over.
Are we going back to the Bucky Brooks? Which remember when it was you have Lamar, you graduate Lamar, and you bring Justin Fields, and remember that conversation?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think the formula for every team. I mean, the most success is you can't keep everybody in any sport, right? Football, basketball, baseball, whatever it is. When you have a quarterback on a rookie contract, especially with how the contracts are nowadays, I mean, it's only going to continue with all these star quarterbacks, reset the market. You can get a guy in there for 4 or 5 years with a 5th-year option, and you can load up on both sides of the ball. I think that's the formula nowadays. I mean, we've seen it doesn't have to be the best quarterback in the league, but I think you can win with both a game changer and a game manager. I just think that the term game manager has come under such a negative light because of what Cam Newton had to say. Not that it was necessarily intentional or anything, but I think the point that he was making was, these guys fall under a category where they're not a Mahomes or they're not an Allen or a Lamar or anybody like that. So that's the connotation with it. But I think the success, if you're building a blueprint, you want to have a quarterback on a rookie contract and load up on both sides of the ball, because once that quarterback gets signed, you can maneuver the cap and kind of bend it a little bit, but it's always going to come back.
Yeah,
and
but
I think
what happens
at that point?
What happens when? And I'm sorry to cut you off,
okay.
but like, what happens when you have your highest paid? I mean, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, San Francisco has the highest paid offensive line and they have the highest paid defensive line. Yes, and then you don't necessarily need Brock Purdy after five years if you don't want him. My point is that, like, you could find somebody just as talented as him in the draft.
Okay, yeah.
So and then plug him back in.
If you don't have a Mahomes or Lamar or an Allen, you get rid of the game manager.
Correct.
You let him walk. But here's the other thing I will argue with that is that quarterback is the hardest position in the NFL, because that's where if you don't get enough really good quarterback play, your team is not going to have a chance to win the Super Bowl. More cases than not, if we go over the years. And we joke around.
Yeah, Trent Dilfer.
Well, that's what I'm saying. People will go back to, but that was 2000. That defense was historic in Baltimore.
But okay, was Eli Manning elite? Was he an elite quarterback, or was it that defense of Michael Strahan that got them to the Super Bowl?
I think it's a combination of Eli to me was like Joe Flacco. You show up in the big moments, and then you let your defense do what they got to do. But if you look at the last 20 years, let's take a look back here.
It's hard because Tom Brady was made up 10 of them.
So Tom Brady. So if you're looking at the last 20 years, Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes have won now 9. Mahomes has 2 Super Bowls, right? So they've won 9 Super Bowls during that period. Joe Flacco, Peyton Manning's won a couple. Eli Manning's won a couple. Ben Roethlisberger. And so when you're looking at all of this, and this was, again, Ben was young. Eli was, in that middle area. That was kind of in his up and coming years. But excuse me, the point being, so many teams, it's such a risk to say, well, we think you're really good, but we need to save money and risk missing out on at least being in that contending world. Because if you don't have a good quarterback for the most part, which we've seen, your team's going to struggle to win the big game. That's just the reality of it. The only exceptions in the last 2 decades that I can think of, Trent Dilfer, if you're going to say he wasn't elite, and Nick Foles coming to win in the last, because then it was Brady. So let's think about these quarterbacks. Tell if they're not elite. Brady, Breeze, Manning, Mahomes, Kurt Warner, Russell Wilson, and he was early, but that defense was historic. But Russell's a very good player.
Kurt Warner did. Oh well, I guess
you weren't born.
I was thinking back to the Steelers, and I was like, they lost that one, Ryan. But I was thinking since continue.
I know. So again, when you're hearing all the names, it's a lot of play. And then the other 2, Eli Manning and Joe Flacco.
But you also hear, or you also see a lot really talented quarterbacks that don't have the supporting cast, and then the blame comes back down on the quarterback on why he's not winning. So I think that there's always a balance, and there's a game that has to be played on shuffling players around and moving money where it needs to go. But I don't know. This seems like something we haven't really seen before, or at least in a while, that the 49ers are doing. And you just got to wonder if other teams are going to try to duplicate that, because it's a copycat league always.